Well, hello to anyone who's already here, and do you want to check the audio levels real quick? See that you can actually hear us. Hey. Thanks, man. Yeah. So tonight is our very first Space Explored Astronomy night. It is a nice, cool night out here. And so we have the eVscope 2, and we're gonna be looking at some different deep sky objects and just really putting it through its paces here on stream. So it'll be a pretty relaxed evening. We've had the Helix Nebula going for almost 40 minutes now, and so we'll continue to just have this split screen with the scope and with what the phone sees throughout the length of the stream. That is Jared. So we've come to an area with a relatively dark sky to put this through its paces. However, it's actually very good at cutting through light pollution. So even if we hadn't, it does a very good job at finding the dark sky objects and working through them. And that's because of the built-in stacking. So unlike a normal telescope, you don't actually have an optical eyepiece with the eVscope 2. We have an electronic eyepiece and a wireless connection to a phone. So you do all of your controlling of the telescope through your cell phone, and all of the tracking, it's pretty automatic. You start off, you take off the lens cap, just do a general focus, make sure it's relatively there, and then you have it scan the sky, and it does plate solving to figure out where it's looking. And then from there you can select different objects within the app and it'll start to point at them. And then you just use their enhanced vision mode. You start that and it does the automatic stacking of multiple different photographs to help develop all of the really dim objects in the dark sky, in the night sky. So tonight it is me, Derek, and Jared, and we're out here at a relatively dark area to just have a good evening taking some photographs of the night sky using our own cameras as well as the eVscope 2, which we're trying out, and you can expect a review of the eVscope 2 very shortly. I have previously used the eVscope Equinox, which is very similar, but it lacks this eyepiece. So this is an electronic eyepiece, much like you'd find on a mirrorless camera, and the eyepiece itself is actually made by Nikon. So you're not looking through the scope when you look through here, you're looking at a screen, but it allows you to see objects you just can't see with a normal telescope without having the tracking and a camera to do long exposures. So for the last 42 minutes we've had it tracking on the Helix Nebula. But as I go here through the app, I can stop that. Enhanced vision. It'll save the image to my phone. And then you go back to what it normally views in real time. And so I can use the controls in here to move around, point at different areas of the sky. It has an automatic exposure, so it adjusts as you point at different objects. Or I can go in the app to the Explore mode. It has different recommended objects for our area, and so you can choose one of them. Let's just say, what would you recommend we point at, Jared? We can do Andromeda, I guess. This one.
Yeah, Andromeda.
So I just hit go to, and the scope starts moving automatically to where the Andromeda Galaxy is. Then once it thinks it's almost there, it'll stop. It'll take the photos see where it's actually pointing and adjust until it actually is pointing exactly at the Andromeda Galaxy. So while it's actually moving, you can't really see too much through it. That's just because it has a sensor in there, and anyone who's shot photos in low light knows it. You have to make the exposure much longer to get enough light in. And so it does this automatically, but you're still gonna get a lot of shake when it's moving. And so now it's pausing. It's gonna see where it's pointed, and it'll adjust from there to point to the Andromeda Galaxy. One of the other things to note when you first start using the eVscope, don't forget to go and take a dark frame. It's on the user side of the app. Taking that dark frame helps get rid of hot pixels, is what they're called. And so it's pixels that just tend to appear red or green. They appear the color of their one of their subpixels because it's stuck. And so that it happens on any camera, but taking dark frames is especially important with long exposures and when you're stacking, and it just sees where those are and automatically gets rid of them. And so now that we're pointed at the galaxy, we can start the enhanced vision mode, and so it'll start taking multiple photos of it and stacking them inside the app, and this is all just with my iPhone, and it does it automatically. Now there are other softwares that you can run to do similar things with other computerized telescopes, but this is a very cohesive experience that's just Wi-Fi connected to your phone, which you really can't quite get with a lot of the other software. So you can see that we're just about 16 seconds in, but you already have so much more detail in the galaxy than live. And I mean, I can't really see any of this with my naked eye, and it just takes a couple seconds to start to develop it. So we'll leave that going for a few minutes to just see how it forms, and then we can look at some other things. So this eVscope 2 is not a cheap telescope. It is about $4,000, and that's $1,000 more than the eVscope Equinox that I tried out before. I really like the eyepiece. Really is a nice addition. It's so much easier to just share with more people. So if you have, whether it's like a small community event, you're trying to share it, or you're just trying to share it with friends, it is cool to just be able to look through the eyepiece rather than having to pass around your phone or something. But one of the unique features here is you can also have, I believe it's up to 10 more people connected as just viewers. So if you have your phone connected and you're controlling the telescope, telling it where to point, you can have 10 more people connected just viewing what it's looking at. One of the other things that comes with the eVscope 2 is a nice backpack for carrying it. So it's a nice backpack for sure. It has area for the legs and everything, and it's so much more convenient than just having to either carry it around in a box, because the eVscope Equinox didn't come with the telescope, but it was an optional accessory, and I definitely think it would be worth it to have the backpack. This does have a slightly wider field of view than the eVscope Equinox as well. So you can see we're now about 2 minutes of stacking for the Andromeda Galaxy. And it's starting to really show some more of its shape. I personally don't have a ton of experience in astrophotography, and I think that's where it's really helpful, because you can absolutely get better results for a lot less money. I think it's fair to say that people who are really into astrophotography won't even look at this telescope, because it's a one-size-fits-all sort of solution. It's an all-in-one solution. You can't change out the sensor in there, you can't change the focal length, and astrophotographers will want to have different tubes they can use and maybe different bodies that they can use, and they'll be able to upgrade the bodies over time, and they'll want to get the raw data out of there to process it exactly how they want. And here we're just getting the completed images out of the app. You don't have a ton of room of flexibility, but if you don't know what you are doing with astrophotography, this is a way to get great photos to share otherwise. So looking around at some other objects beyond Andromeda, it's recommended the Triangulum Galaxy, Owl Cluster. It's an interesting project for sure, TJ. I don't know how to describe it. I do personally think it's really cool. Would I personally buy it though? No, it's just too much money. I'd much sooner go with a much cheaper telescope or multiple telescopes and then use it with my body and then really put the time into it. But for people who aren't photographers, who don't want to take time developing it, it's pretty cool, I'd say. So with the about 5 minutes on the Andromeda Galaxy, I'll stop that. It does a really good job getting the photos pretty quick.
Oh. We need.
Okay, and we are back. I do not know what that was. It just took unplugging and replugging in our capture card. Thank you for letting me know, Eric. Yeah, so we are about 60 seconds into the Triangulum Galaxy, and it's starting to get some shape there. So I'm going to pan you over to Jared's setup briefly.
How's that look?
There.
One of the things I've been trying to do in my head is figure out how much money this setup is compared to that setup. It's a lot.
Yeah, the price difference really, if you're able to DIY, it'll be cheaper for sure.
But this setup is using the, I guess it's still lit up a little bit. The setup is using the Skywatcher Star Adventurer Pro tracking mount. The telescope that is on it is a Star Adventurer refracting telescope. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head which one it is, but it's 420 millimeter focal length, f5.6. I got a field flattener on there also with my Nikon D5300, using a myops trigger right now. I've been taking 50-second exposures of the Andromeda Galaxy to we can use it as a kind of a comparison to what the eVscope is able to do. And yeah, that setup is probably approaching 2,000, if not more.
Yeah, and it is phone specific, and I think if you had to hook it up to a laptop, it would really hurt the value of the scope. I think if you having it as an option would be nice, but yeah, it is phone, iOS and Android specific. Yeah, I've honestly just been impressed with how fast it is able to get detail out of these otherwise invisible to the naked eye objects, because we went to a somewhat dark area for this, but it really isn't, it's not a dark sky area. Yep.
You want to know how it's not a dark sky?
Yeah, you can see in the background of our shot that there's couple towns over there, and we're definitely not in a dark sky area, but it is
actually, I don't think
doing a good job.
I don't think it's in the camera view.
Yeah.
That. And for those of you that are astrophotographers, the Bortle class of this area, I believe, is class 4. It's either very low class 5 or it's class 4 Bortle.
Yeah, and so I mean, we've got like 3 minutes on the Triangulum Galaxy, and it's not, I don't know if it's like a print-worthy type photo, but it's something definitely great to share on social media, and it was super easy to capture, and that's definitely where the eVscope shines.
I do think here soon we probably could move to Pleiades, because once I'm done getting all these pictures, which may be coming up here soon, that's where I'm going to be moving to.
Yeah, if anyone watching, if you have a recommendation on something you'd like to see with the eVscope, let me know, and I can move it over there with a couple taps on the phone.
Hey, speaking
And in case you did wonder, this is the backpack. It's pretty nice. It has different areas for all the accessories, and it's got space for the tripod on the side. It does its job, and it's way easier than trying to deal with the telescope on its own.
I think it's kind of funny because when we looked over here at my setup, had you gone a little more to the right, you would have gotten the moon in the view also.
Yes, using the app, it is nice for just exploring. Part of me wishes there were photos of these objects as we're scrolling by, but at the same time, it's pretty cool to see them develop on the screen. So while perhaps we might want to spend more time on each galaxy in the future, we're going to move over to Pleiades now. Yeah, it holds everything you need. It'll have the charger, it has spots for both the eyepiece cap as well as that actual the Bahantov mask and the cap for the telescope right in there, so you have a nice place to slide them and keep them safe. It's got an extra little pocket on the front. I use that to keep the a separate telescope camera for tracking when we do rocket launches. It's just convenient. Now, again, relative to the price, I mean, it's a decent quality backpack. Is it worth the amount you're going to spend on the scope? That's up to the individual to decide. Now, one of the things you can do, you do have a little bit more control. Normally it just does auto, and it'll do a good job with that for the most part, but you can adjust your exposure and your gain on live view. If I found it most useful when like looking at the moon or looking at planets, making sure that it's how you want it. And also, once you start the enhanced vision, you're able to adjust the brightness in there to help show what you want to show with it.
Oh, we just had the launch of Japan's Epsilon, JAXA's Epsilon.
Ooh, that had the Raise 2 satellite, right?
It's carrying 9 demonstrations.
Yep, that'd be including the Raise 2.
Okay.
I think the Raise 2 is the main one, and it has more on there.
What's Raise 2?
I don't remember at this point. I wrote an article last time it was about to launch before it aborted. And yeah. So I have a mostly written article for that one. Yeah, so once you have the enhanced vision running, you can open up the settings, turn off the auto.
A nice plane fly right through my phone.
And I find the settings here to be kind of finicky, and you like move it and it's a little bit back and forth. But you can adjust it, which is nice. One of the things I really wish it did have was just access to the raw data. I think it would be a much more compelling solution for astrophotographers if there was raw data access for the telescope. Fortunately, that's not the case. Now, this all started, I believe, back in 2017. The original eVscope was a Kickstarter project, and since then they've this is their third product. They had the eVscope Equinox, and now the eVscope 2. They've definitely gotten better each time. And so it's pretty cool that it's a pretty unique class of item, I'd say. Now, there are a couple other competitors at this point. There's the Stellina. They've got...
The same company has a new one coming out soon called the Spira. The first deliveries of that coming out December this year. Probably the people who kickstarted it is probably should be the first ones to get it, and then January they should be having the other ones.
But in terms of an all-in-one solution, there aren't a ton of other options out here other than the eVscope.
Yeah, all-in-one solutions. Yeah. Now, if you talk about computerized telescopes, tons.
Yeah.
Tons of.
Like you said, you had, what was it, the 8SE? That, I will admit, that's one I'm looking at for tracking for rocket launches. I think it'd be great to have that sort of reach. So, I'll probably be getting an 8SE relatively soon.
Just add it to the list.
I've got a list of items. I've got cameras I want. I've got telescopes I want. I've
got a car. Now I will say since we got talking about competitors with the eVscope, with the Stellina one of the things that sets it apart is the fact that you actually do get the raw files from Stellina, and even their new one. You'll be able to plug in a USB drive to the telescope and have it save those raw files. It also has an autofocus system built in, at least for Stellina. I think also the Spira. I think in terms of technology, the Spira and Stellina are about the same. It has like dew heater built in. There's a lot of stuff that is built into Stellina that is not built into the eVscope. How many megapixels is the sensor?
I believe it's an 8 megapixel sensor. I'm not 100% on that.
So if it's an 8 megapixel sensor, let's just run with that. Say it is. If not, sorry, Unistellar. The Stellina telescope, it has a 6 megapixel sensor. And then the Vespera has a 2 megapixel sensor, but it has a mode that it will make they call mosaic mode, and it'll make like a 6 megapixel or 8 megapixel picture out of like kind of taking pictures of the sky in the mosaic pattern and stitching all that together and aligning it. I would have to look it up, but they also have another telescope that is not in the same class of any of these telescopes. It's kind of insane.
It's very insane. Let's be real here.
I want it because of how insane it is. First off, it has a 61 megapixel image sensor, and all these telescopes use Sony sensors. Sony makes really good low light performance camera sensors, which is why they're good for astrophotography. But it's a 61 megapixel sensor. The thing stands like, if it's not 6 foot, it's like 5 foot tall. It's like, it looks like a post, a bit like a 16 inch wide post. That when it's like fully like deployed, it's like 6 foot, like 9 inches tall or whatever at its highest. It's definitely, that one is, it's within its own class of telescope. I think it's 150 millimeter focal length, which is not actually like super zoom.
No, I believe its aperture is 150 millimeters, and it's like 1,000 millimeter focal length.
It's weird when you start looking at, when you apply like camera lens numbers to telescopes, because it's like in camera lenses, focal length is the like zoom of the lens, but it's like in telescopes it can be just the aperture measurement of 150 millimeter aperture. But the focal length is 1,050 millimeters for zoom wise. But that is definitely not a telescope carry around. It's designed to be anchored into a floor somewhere. It has built-in gigabit Ethernet, so you can control it from a computer. Which honestly, you kind of need gigabit Ethernet when you're dealing with 61 megapixel raw files. If you're transferring them and stacking at the same time. But that one is a pretty crazy telescope. But again, not in the same class as anything we're talking about here.
So, just to pull up a few specs on the eVscope 2, its price is $41.99 US. Its resolution, it's 3200 by 2400 with a 34 by 47 arc minute field of view and a 1.5 arc second separating power. Now, they list the magnitude, the maximum magnitude it can view as, quote, up to 18, so that'll of course depend a ton. 4.5 inch mirror diameter, 450 millimeter focal length, and it's about 20 pounds with the tripod. Its built-in battery lasts for 10 hours, and the Sony image sensor is an IMX 347.
Is that the same one they use on the Equinox?
I believe it is the same one as the Equinox. Let me double check that.
I do love Pleiades is one of those interesting deep sky objects that you can get pictures of.
Yeah, on the Equinox, it's the IMX 224.
Okay.
So.
But Pleiades is one of those interesting, deep sky objects because it's a naked eye one, which means you can see it with your naked eye. Honestly, we could probably point the camera at it and probably see it. But it's an open star cluster. I don't know exactly how the Unistellar app describes it, but it should be basically an open star cluster.
Yep, it's just described as an open cluster.
Yep.
So,
but one of the interesting things about it that if you look up Pleiades, which is, have fun spelling it, because it's not really spelled the way you say it. There's nebulosity to it. So if you've seen pictures of the Orion Nebula, and you have all those like kind of pink and purple colors, and you see it looks like clouds of dust and stuff. Pleiades has that too, but it's really hard to see. You can't see it naked eye. You really can't even see it through a telescope looking with your eye. You basically have to take long exposure pictures to actually be able to see it. But if you look it up, you see that. And last time we brought this stuff out here, I got a few photos of Pleiades and stacked it, and that was the first time I've really gotten the nebulosity and the light blue colors of Pleiades to show up. One of the things I really do like that the eVscope shows is that nice star spike in the picture. For one of those main stars, it has a very nice star spike, which is a good sign of it being that nice and in focus.
Because it can be a little bit challenging to focus with an electronic telescope because you're dealing with the slightly longer exposure rather than an optical view. But using the mask, it does make it a whole lot easier. You focus on, you aim it at something real bright, throw on the mask, and then you have a massive, it's basically the entire bottom of that tube that you adjust in order to focus it. So as it stops, it's set so it'll automatically save the picture. And in a little bit, I'll go to some of the other photos that I've shot on nights before stuff.
Where are we going now?
NGC 6946. I don't know much about it. It's showed up in the app, so I thought I'd give it a try.
It is referred to as the Fireworks Galaxy. Hadwell 12 is a spiral galaxy in the constellation of Cygnus. Its visual magnitude is 8.88, so it is a very dim. It is a very dim galaxy. Kind of looking back towards light pollution.
Well, it's doing its aiming, and we'll see what it captures. I think it's cool for just exploring. You don't have to do the aiming, you don't have to know what stars you're looking at. You just select what you want to look at, and it'll figure out how to get you there.
It was discovered by William Herschel on September 9th, 1798. The galaxy is faint but obvious is that its diffuse oval halo brightening considerably towards the center. It's a nebulous object in the well-populated star field and forms a nice pair with the star-rich open cluster NGC 6939 located 30 degrees.
And so it doesn't. The Unistellar app doesn't have a ton of information on it. It's literally just that. But hopefully, in just a couple moments, we'll start to see some detail of it. So yeah, sometimes it does take a little bit of time to get started. It has to figure out how it's deciding to do the enhanced vision, what exposure it's using and everything, what exposure time, what gain and everything. But now it seems to be started. Maybe we'll get a little bit of detail here soon. Yeah, definitely try it for Crew 3. That'll be a good one. It'll be after dark. I mean, trying to think what visibility will be like up there. I know some people who just do some wide shots with long exposures to get photos of the launches up in like New York area. But yeah, that'd definitely be cool. We will be live for Crew 3 as well. We are actually going out there tomorrow, and we are setting up remote cameras at the launch pad from 11 to 1. So if you follow us on social media, on Twitter, you'll be able to see some of those photos as we capture them tomorrow. So we're getting a little bit of detail in here, not too much yet. We're at a little over a minute, and this is for like a galaxy I knew nothing about. So I've honestly never looked at it through the scope or anything before. To go through the photos I have taken on here, I've got a few from previous nights that I like. You can see this is what you get if you forget to take dark frames. Yep, these are from the last time we were out here. So it can definitely get some decent shots.
Yeah, the quality of the shot definitely depends on the level of focus, for sure.
Yeah. You have to make sure you're really, really well in focus. You can see, if you don't have dark frames, you get the red spots and the green spots in there. And they move around a little just because it does the stacking, and so it can't perfectly track every star. Like it can't perfectly track it and follow it with the noise. So each photograph is stacked on top of each other and they don't align perfectly. So that's why these hot pixels, you can see it looks like there are multiple of them, but that's just where it moved over time. And when those images are aligned to the stars, they appear to move. So you can also see some of the stacking artifacts in the corner, because as it moves, it of course, the frame itself like isn't the same with each shot. So you get some of the artifacts of that inside. That's why by default, it actually does a circular crop of the image, and it has a little bit of information about your location of the object and the time around it. I turned that off just because I wanted to have as much of the image viewable as possible, but you can definitely leave it on, and then it's a really convenient thing to just have baked into the image what you were looking at. I do think it'd be nice if that was like thrown into metadata, so you could look at it on your phone, on the computer, and have that stuff baked in to the image without it having to be displayed on there, but it's an option. Yeah, so we're at 2 minutes on here. We're getting a little bit more detail in there. Nothing.
Yeah, you can actually see the arms and spiral.
Yeah, you can see the spiral. Not too much there yet, and we don't have the option with this scope to change focal length for different objects. So we've got this, and we can do our digital crop in, and this is as wide as we can get. That's one of the things with the all-in-one solution. It's not perfect for everything, but it does a good job for a lot of things. What would you think we should look at?
Honestly, holy stuff is looking so far because say Orion is right next. Would be interesting, but I don't probably it probably rises soon.
So, one of the things we can look at, the Great Nebula in Orion. So, one of the really helpful things about the app is it has that integrated. So its altitude currently is -6 degrees. It's not going to be visible until about 10:30. So it'll be a bit till it's visible. And
is it 10:30 for it being the certain degree above the horizon, or just
so there are options that I haven't totally set. So So in the general here, enable autosave when exiting enhanced vision. I always have that enabled just in case something gets connected. Oh, of course, Eric. Thanks for joining us. And definitely add us in some of your photos on Twitter. I'd love to see some of those. Have a great night.
Hey, there was a shooting star. It doesn't compare to what you said you saw. It was a bunch.
Yep, there are different parameters you can use, so just going through some of the settings. You can see. And when I first set this up, there were visibility, like how high above the horizon. There are also different events. So on the Unistellar website, you can go in to participate in community events with this. So whether it's a bunch of people around the world using their Unistellar scopes, looking at the same asteroid to try to get, like, when it passes in front of stuff to try to locate. There's a lot of different stuff you can do. I really haven't explored it as much as I want to.
Around 9:30, we should be able to do Orion. Because around 10:30, it's like 40 degrees above the horizon.
What time is it right now?
It is 8:30.
Okay, my phone is saying 9:41.
Okay, so it's just your phone being correct.
I am very confused why my phone is at the time it is.
Because it's 10 minutes, it's an hour and 10 off. That's interesting.
Yeah, it had the correct time earlier today. Interesting.
And the app is definitely getting its time from your phone. So yeah, I think it's correct in what it was saying. It was just an hour above. So it's probably It's probably looking for when it's 10 degrees above the horizon, which is generally what most people do.
M52 Open Cluster.
So it's just gonna be stars.
Yeah. And the different images correspond. We've got Ring Nebula we can look at, Owl Cluster, Dumbbell Nebula, Andromeda 32.
Do you want to do the Helix again? Since that's what we started with?
We can do that again. I want to explore some other fadings.
Those are going to be in the west. So.
Yes, not ideal. Let's look at some other galaxies.
You'll quickly learn how very few galaxies have names.
Yeah. NGC 6946 is what we're... Okay, there we go. NGC 7317 we're going to look at now.
That one's almost straight up.
Yeah, and so all this stuff we're really looking at, unless I say otherwise, I'm not familiar with it. I think it's one of the cool things about this is how easy it is to discover new stuff. I think if you happen to be like, I'm trying to think some of the good applications for this. One of the things that came to mind when I was talking about the eVscope Equinox in my review was the Sidewalk Science Center. And so one of the things that happens there is they do like sidewalk events, just looking at they do basically astronomy nights like this in person for a bunch of kids in public parks. And so something like this could be a great way to show objects other than like planets and the moon that are easy to look at through high power telescopes. Stuff like this that's invisible to the naked eye. This could be a really good way to show it off on one of those events.
Yeah. Like educational institutions.
Yep, educational institutions is one of the good applications of this scope, I think. Anyone watching, if you happen to be interested in astrophotography and astronomy, let us know. Let us know if there's something you would like us to look at. I'm definitely much newer to astrophotography than Jared is, but we'll try to answer any questions. We'll try to show off the scope as much as we can.
awesome.
Definitely. Yeah, we definitely plan on doing more of these astronomy nights in the future.
We have plans.
We have plans. Now, I'm not seeing too much on here.
Which is this?
NGC 7317.
Oh, that's a galaxy, right?
Yeah, it's a galaxy. Not too much other info on it in here.
I think a good pairing with this would definitely be Celestron has an app that's free called Sky Portal. I think that either Sky Portal, there's also Stellarium Plus for mobile. What is the numbers for this one?
7317.
Can you show me again? Let me check Stellarium.
Now let's move to something else. 0185. See if that's.
So that one, NGC 7317, was an elliptical galaxy in the Pegasus constellation. Its magnitude was 13.56. So that would be why we did not see anything. Because while this is a dark sky area,
It's not that dark sky.
yeah.
And we also only had it going for like 2 minutes. If we tried to adjust it in a more manually and we let it go for longer, we probably could have found something there.
It's got a nice yellow.
Yeah, and if anyone listening has other questions, whether it's like rocket launch photography, feel free to ask. We're happy to talk about that stuff. I personally have more knowledge of rockets than I do of astrophotography. So. So it's still adjusting over there. Let's see how close it is.
The SpaceX crew, 2 astronauts have donned their spacesuits ahead of their re-entry.
Jared, any recommendations of something like magnitude 6?
In magnitude 6?
Or so to look at? I'll start their enhanced division, their stacking on this one, and then we'll look at something else brighter to find. We can go back to like the Helix Nebula. That's what we started with at the very beginning of this. That one showed up very nicely, very quickly. So we'll leave this go for a minute or two, and then we can head over there to see how fast that develops. Of course, yeah, and we do plan on going to Orion once it's visible, but it's going to be another 40 minutes at least. Yeah, so we'll do Helix, we'll look at the double cluster. let's just go over to Helix now, actually. So, yeah, so I don't know if you're just joining or not, but this is the eVscope 2. It's a pretty unique telescope in that it doesn't have any optical eyepiece. It has an electronic eyepiece, but all of the controlling of it is done through your phone. And so it does the aiming, it does the it does most of it all automatically, and then it gives you a finished image. It does the stacking within the app. And so might take a couple different moves to get it perfectly aligned. And so you'll see it continue to adjust, then it'll pause a little bit, then it'll adjust until it's right on target. But yeah, all the controlling I do here is from my phone, which you can see the screen up, and it was literally just selecting the object in the app and letting it go to find it. So there we are, I guess. And let's let the enhanced vision go. That's their name for their stacking that they do. And it shouldn't take long at all to start to see something here. You can already just barely start to see the faint ring in there, and we'll get a little bit of color on that pretty soon. Yeah. I did use that once.
We just have to figure out if it's still 100% feet, which I kind of doubt. But if anything, we'll probably make some sessions.
So it automatically filters through the images if it sees vibration, if like the wind picks up and moves the telescope a bit. It does all of that automatically, making it probably the easiest telescope to use for the average person. And so there was a stacking issue. That's only the second time I've ever actually seen that happen. So I'm just gonna say no, and then I'll let it stop and I'll just start a new one. That would definitely be unfortunate if it happened pretty far into it stacking, since we don't have the raw data. However, it's nice that they still do let you attempt to continue it if it's not too bad of an issue. Yeah, so the eyepiece itself on the Unistellar is a circular view, even though you do have the full rectangular view when you're using the mobile app. There's a little bit of color in there. Yeah, last time we did like 40 minutes on this right before we started. We're only going to do a couple more on the Helix. Then we'll find some other things in the sky to look at.
I think a double cluster would be an interesting one.
Yeah, let's find a double cluster after this. do not know why. It seems like the capture card is freezing from time to time. But we are back. So it's moving to that cluster. Takes a little bit of time to get there. And we'll keep adjusting till it's there. Well, says it is there. Start some enhanced vision and see how many extra little things it'll see.
Yeah, that's not it. For my photos of Pleiades, I got about another 6 minutes or so for getting those pictures.
Yeah, and we would not normally have a light on like this, but we figured we'd light up the telescope so it's at least decently visible on the screen.
So now I'm curious. As an option.
I'm unsure. This keeps cutting off. Can't bump the HDMI cable.
Is yours as an option for the eVscope?
Yeah.
Because that could be an interesting one. Yours could be cool.
we're going over to Uranus now.
And that is how we would be saying it. It is a 5.7 magnitude, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, our photo won't be like that. This is definitely not made for planets at all. But
I have some.
You can look at them.
Yeah, you can look at them, and I'm kind of hopeful for Uranus just because of how dim of a planet it is and how far away it is. That it may look like something. I'm hoping that maybe we see moons, but I'm not gonna hold out hope. Is that Uranus right there in the center?
Probably, but it might take another adjustment to finish.
I think that is it. And if that's it, it looks like you can see a moon right there. If you zoom in.
Oh yeah? Well, let's see. Once it adjusts, then I can do a digital zoom in on it. And, now let me bring down the gain a little bit. No, you've got a... That's what we can see of the planet.
It's like a bluish color. Would you agree that's a kind of bluish?
Especially once you bring down the gain, so you can actually get it exposed, right? You can tell it's blue. Yeah, you don't get anything more than that.
And then when you bring up the gain and stuff, I think that should be a moon. At least that brighter one, and that very dim moon next to it may also be a moon.
Yeah.
But I don't think Uranus has moons that expand very far out from it.
And this is an 8 times digital crop in. When you're looking at the actual view of it, that's what it looks like. So, let's turn back on auto.
Yeah, let's just let that go for a little bit.
And
I'm just curious to see if it shows any more moons or anything.
oh, I was not doing enhanced vision. We can do enhanced vision though. Let's see how it does automatically.
Hey, and guess where we can go after it? Oh yeah. Guess where we can go after this?
Where? Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, that one is even better. Actually, don't even know it doesn't have moons.
You know, yeah, this enhanced vision on planets will not be good with this. Anything for planets won't be great with the eVscope. But so it is. It's not really made for that. Its specialty is absolutely deep sky objects.
You just want to try Neptune just real quick just to see if it's like a very... Neptune should be a much more blue than Uranus.
Let's go over to Neptune briefly.
What's funny is Neptune is like right over there.
Yeah, and you can see whenever I just select another one for it to go to, it shows picture is saved. That is one setting that everyone that has this scope should turn on. That way there's no chance that you accidentally lose a picture. It's taking its time doing the solving to make sure it can line up. Should line up pretty soon.
Oh, yeah. Did you see color?
you can see as it was actually moving how much the color was visible. And once we bring down this exposure a little bit, you can tell that it's blue. You can also see how small and dim it actually is. Yeah, and for those of you watching who are interested in spaceflight as well, there is the splashdown of the Crew 2, SpaceX's Crew 2 mission. They launched early this year, and they are splashing down with the Dragon capsule somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, and then they'll be coming back, and then we have Crew 3 launching this Wednesday. Be sure to stay tuned. Off Pensacola. All right, I did not know that yet. And yeah, so definitely stay tuned. We'll live stream the launch and look forward to them splashing down safely.
If you go to our ISS live stream that we have on the same YouTube channel.
Yeah, so if you're on the channel, you can just click over and look at that.
Right now, I think it has the NASA TV coverage for the return of the crew.
Yep, and that has two different live views from the ISS. They do get cut out sometimes when they aren't in good communication zones, when they're prioritizing other stuff. But there's an external view and a view that switches between internal view and all that in comms. That's combined with a map that shows the location of the ISS over the Earth. And when there are events like this that are related, we'll throw in the mission coverage as well. Sometimes if they're launching to the ISS, we'll throw our live launch video in there. So it's definitely worth taking a look at that. And if you want to find it again, it's spaceexplorer.com/ISS live. Yeah, so I really don't know what a lot of these objects are, but the app makes it really easy to explore and find new things. So we're going to the Blue Oyster Nebula now. And as it loads, I'll just go back over to the photos we've taken thus far. So these top 4 rows are what we've taken tonight, but you can see we've taken plenty more photos before this. We look forward to having even more time with this. Stay tuned. So it's still doing the solving, figuring out where it is pointing. It'll keep adjusting, and then we will be able to start the stacking on the Blue Oyster Nebula. Yeah, it's a really cool product. It's the eVscope 2. So there, it looks like it's now found its location, so I'll start the stacking. It is very similar to their previous products, but it just continues to get updated. So this one has a new eyepiece built by Nikon, but being an eVscope, it is an electronic eyepiece. There's no optical way to view what the scope is seeing. So you've got the electronic eyepiece, and you have the smartphone connection to control it, and that's it. There's no optical control over any of it. But it's really an all-in-one solution. So you're connecting with your phone over Wi-Fi. It shows you all the different things you can point at. It'll go there automatically. You tap the button when you want it to start capturing photos, and it automatically does stacking until you hit the stop button. It has a way to easily take the dark frames internally. It really does all of that in one simple app, and I think it's really cool. And the real downside to it is the price. It's over $4,000. So if you really want to put the time into learning astrophotography and into developing your own photos, this isn't necessarily the right scope. But if you're interested but don't want to spend time connecting to a computer, don't want to spend time processing photos, this does it automatically and gives you a pretty decent photo that you can share just right from the beginning. So it looks like this may be a very small nebula. And so being an all-in-one product, you don't have the option to go to a new focal length. You're at this focal length. And it is what it is. But it has a lot of... It does it automatically. So if you want to put the time into getting your own mount, getting your own scopes, getting your own cameras, running the software to stack it, that's great. And it does... You'll be able to get better results overall and continue to improve your setup, photograph more things in the night sky. But as far as just getting started, I don't think anything really beats how quick this is to just get started, start taking photographs. In 30, 40 minutes, you can go photograph 8, 9, 10 different objects.
How do you pick
Yep, so the app doesn't have a ton of information on the Blue Oyster, but for some of the more popular objects, it has a lot more in-depth information about them.
since magnitude 13?
We're about 3 minutes of taking the photo, and if the scope gets bumped just a little bit, or if the wind messes with it, it will automatically just discard those and keep going. And only if it runs into an issue with stacking will it pop up an error, but it really does all of it automatically. Yeah, that looks like what we're seeing. Just very small. So if you were building your own setup, you would want a lot more focal length than this to really photograph the Blue Oyster Nebula. And we're getting somewhat close to the time that the Orion Nebula might be visible. Not quite yet, but we'll get there pretty soon.
The last star of the belt is just starting to come above the light pollution.
Yeah. Now, actually, that might be a good example. So let me actually move the camera view over a bit.
You can see the 3 stars of the belt.
So that's what Orion looks like right now.
Let me see.
And let's just go over to the Orion Nebula. And it's barely above the horizon.
I'll try to see if I can.
And it gives a warning that it's so close to the horizon, but it'll point over there.
Can you kind of guide me? I can't really see. I think you're gonna see it better on this one. I'm trying to just point the belt.
Yeah.
The belt is like right here. These 3 stars is Orion's belt, and the Orion Nebula is gonna be down over here, which I don't think it's gonna show up on the camera.
And so you can see as we look back at the scope itself, it is very close to the horizon, far from the ideal location to photograph it at.
If this is zoomed in, when you start slowing, does it stay zoomed in? I guess it doesn't show the index. Interesting.
So let's let that figure out where it is, if it can figure it out with all the light pollution over there right at the horizon. Go to finished. Well, this will be a challenge for sure. It'll be extraordinarily impressive if it pulls it off, because this is right in the light pollution over there. But I think that's a testament to the scope if it can do it, because you will not be able to see anything with normal scope unless you have stacking. And so the fact that this has the stacking internally, it'll be able to do this in the scope, hopefully. So let's see. I really want to see. It'll definitely take a little bit longer than if it were up in the clear sky, but I look forward to seeing how it ends up showing up. Nothing yet. Let's see. Hello, those of you who are joining. We are just doing a pretty casual astronomy night with the eVscope 2. Yeah, so enhanced vision, stacking issues detected. So we're just gonna say no for now. We're gonna give it another chance to make sure it finds the right location. And again, it gives me a warning because it might be obstructed. It's so low to the horizon. Yeah, if you have any questions, anything specific you want to see, just let us know, and we can move the eVscope over to it in a bit. Whether it's about this, if it's about rockets, feel free to ask them in the comments. Right now, we really are trying to put it through a worst case scenario for the eVscope. So if it's able to do it, I will be very impressed. Still seems to be just, oh. Let's see. Let's start the enhanced vision. So that's the name for the stacking that it does within the app and the scope. Let's see if it is able to get anything from there. If it can get anything, I'll be impressed. Definitely think it's going to struggle now. That's something we captured the other day in just a couple minutes, but that was well above the horizon. We've only got 8 seconds so far on the Great Nebula. Maybe it's struggling to stack. Wouldn't be too surprising. Enhanced vision dropped. Yep. Okay. We'll go back to the Orion Nebula in a little bit longer once it's just slightly higher above the horizon. In the meantime, if y'all have anything you want to see, let us know in the comments. Have we done 891? I do not know. Let's go take a look. Yeah, once it gets to the darker sky, it's able to do the plate solving much faster. It's able to find its location. So let's start this stacking on here and see how long it takes to start to develop something. Well, how about that? It's already starting to look pretty cool. 116 seconds so far.
Oh, it's this thing. I don't remember what this thing's called, but I know what this thing is.
Something else worth taking a look at is our ISS live stream. Stay here for now. Once we're closer to the end, you can go to spaceexplored.com/ISS live, and you can see live views from the International Space Station combined with when there's a launch, the mission coverage for that, as well as our own camera feeds. And it has some great show music to just turn on in the background. Great thing to just enjoy listening to. You can hear some of the mission control audio in there. It's a great thing to work to. If any of you have something you'd like to see imaged on the eVscope 2, just let us know and we can take a look. That's 2 times in. So that's
for how dim the galaxy is, it's not bad. But yeah, this galaxy is referred to as like the silver galaxy. Let's see, there's a few names. The silver galaxy and the outer limit galaxy was discovered in October 6, 1784.
And for those of you who are not familiar, I'm Derek, and with me is Jared, and we are both photographers at Space Explored. So you can stay tuned on our Twitter accounts tomorrow, which are down in the description, and we will have photos from at the launch pad as we set up our remote cameras for Crew 3 launch, and then on the day of launch, stay tuned for live coverage from us, as well as photos, as well as remote photos. Once we get back to those cameras, pick them up, then we can share some great photos from at the launch pad. So definitely be sure to follow us on social media and follow at Space Explored on Twitter, and check out our website as we cover all the latest events in space and spaceflight news.
I think it would be cool, especially
It'll go to Ryan pretty soon.
I mean, I can see the stars for like see these pictures. It's doing the long still. But I'm not gonna lie, I am impressed with what the eVscope has been able to do with this very dim object.
The Orion Nebula isn't that much higher in the sky yet, but it might already be ready to photograph. More of the stars are visible around there.
Yeah, I just did my picture of the Orion Nebula. Light pollution galore in there. The picture is like orange. They'd probably be able to get there, and because it does the stacking live time, it'd probably look better than any picture I took.
Yeah, so we've done 8 minutes on there. Let's head over to Orion. Still only 7 degrees, but let's see how it does. Already looks better, and it hasn't done any stacking yet. It's much better than last time. Again, look at that. Might adjust to try to center it one more time, and then we can start the stacking on it. How about that? And it shouldn't take too long to look dramatically better than it does in the live view. Yeah, so just 16 seconds in and it's already starting to really develop. So it shouldn't take too long to have a really nice formation. See if you go right here. Ooh, that's exciting. Yeah, so it's doing a good job developing Orion. And it's still very low to the horizon with a decent amount of light pollution.
I agree. What was it doing now? It's still doing. I actually haven't looked at what it's got.
Sorry about that. That was the adapter that I'm using. Just shutting off and back on again. And I do not know why it was doing that, but that's interesting. I'm gonna have to figure that out.
Let's see. They go 45.
On this.
Well, yeah, on this. Just cross 2 hours.
Yeah, so for those of you watching, let us know if there's something specific you want to see. We're in Central Florida. We'll look at something else in the sky. Orion's just rising for us. If there's something you want to see with the eVscope, it's a real easy to use app. Plenty of information on a lot of the more major objects. Then some of them, like, there are definitely a fair few that really don't have much information. It would be nice if some of that was a bit more filled out. But if you are familiar with Unistellar, you can go on their website, look at some of the different events you can do, and then with one of these telescopes, whether an eVscope 2, whether it's an Equinox, you can participate in community events for stuff like the asteroids, so like triangulating locations and stuff based on like time. There are a lot of different things you can participate in community events that I want to do more of in the future. But here are just some of the images we have taken with the eVscope. And all of this is done from within the app.
burn for crew 2 this one.
And if you did not hear that, that was the deorbit burn for crew 2 is underway. So, Dragon is coming home.
One way or another, it's going home. There's nothing factually incorrect there.
So we've been on here for almost 10 minutes now. We'll give it a little bit more time, then let's go to something else. Oh, and enhanced vision just dropped. Oh, it's back. Okay, so I do not know why it did that, but it's picked back up again at the 9-minute mark for enhanced vision on the Orion Nebula. So you've been going almost 10 minutes now, and it's doing pretty good, I'd say. So it has recommended different things to look at. Let's see. Whirlpool Galaxy. Yep.
That's gonna be.
That's not visible.
What magnitude was it?
Well, I've taken photographs of it before, but it's negative 13 degrees right now.
We'll see. We're shooting stars. Again, does not compare to what we saw.
That was one of the best shooting stars of my life, for sure. Like, well, if any of you watching, which is now 0, if anyone watching has a recommendation for something they'd like to see, otherwise, I'm going to look around the night sky for a bit. You can see, even in real time, Orion is very bright. Look at the live view on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Orion is one of the best examples of a deep sky object that you can see with your naked eye. try to fly in or Horsehead.
Yeah, so you can see when it's moving, like you get the massive trails by the stars. Let's go to the Flame Nebula.
Or on your seats, it's gonna be a long ride. A wild ride of 2 degrees of
And so we're what, about trying to. My phone is still displaying the exact same time as it was an hour ago. It's saying 9:41 still. It's 9:50.
If you're talking about time to splash them in 43 minutes.
Cool. I'm gonna have to figure out why my phone's displaying the wrong time now.
Just email Tim Cook and ask.
Yeah, I'll have to do that.
And just for the record, we know there has been some Starlink satellites traveling around the sky here, and every time I saw on an app I was using that there was one, we both tried to look for them, could not see them.
Yeah, haven't had any luck there yet. Or misfortune, I guess, if you.
Yeah.
Depending on who you are. There are legitimate concerns there, but I mean, we're in a dark area. We've been here.
Neither of us are qualified to talk about concern.
Yeah. We haven't been able to see them.
I'm not going to stick on the subject too long, but that's one of the things that's really annoyed me about people being mad about Starlink's taking our night skies. It's like, do you really care? Or are you being angry to be angry?
Angry train. It's fun to join. Let's see how the enhanced vision on the Flame Nebula goes. Oh well, there's something from the Flame Nebula so far. It's starting to turn into something. Hopefully a couple of minutes of that and we'll have a nice view.
Probably like 5 minutes away or so from the deorbit burn being.
Alright. So we are just about 2 minutes on the Flame Nebula so far, and it's starting to become visible, really. Hopefully we'll get some more color and stuff in there soon. Ooh. That could be a good view for him.
Yeah.
Yep. And Crew 2, they launched early this year. They are splashing down this evening, so they had a deorbit burn, and they'll be splashing down in what? A little over
40 minutes.
About 40 minutes now.
Now,
And then,
of course, we are very unlikely to see anything at all from where we are.
yeah, it's not
splashing off the splashing down off the coast of Pensacola, but yeah, I remember if they were to return yesterday, it would have come across the U.S. to splash down. So everyone was like really excited for that.
Well, we will keep an eye open regardless, even though it's unlikely for us to see anything.
Or wait, no, actually no. I'm stupid. There's somewhere.
Well, we can stay live until that point and be ready to point the camera over there just in case.
Yeah.
Starting to get a little bit of color in the Flame Nebula, not too much.
Yeah, I think this is kind of also attributed to it still being relatively low.
Yeah, it'll get better with time, and once it gets out of the light pollution a little bit more. You can see on the big camera, it's still very near the horizon.
The orbit burn is complete according to SpaceX.
All right. Well, how about that?
Crew Dragon Endeavour is heading home.
We still have time. We can make it Pensacola, right?
Sure, let's drive 6 hours.
We can make it in the next 40 minutes.
You know, we can drive 6 hours, and I think we could probably find a boat to hop in and go out there.
I'm sure SpaceX loves the boaters who go out to visit the capsule. That's no.
For legal reasons, that's a joke. We are in Central Florida.
As you can tell by how the eVscope is pointed. If any of you watching have any questions, I sort of explained a lot of this at the beginning of the stream, but we have the eVscope 2 here. It's made by Unistellar. It's an electronic telescope. It's a smart telescope, so you don't have an optical eyepiece. It connects to your phone, and you use your phone to control what it's pointing at, and it does a bunch of the stacking internally to create pretty great images of deep sky objects. Now, you don't have some of the manual control. You can't switch out what imaging sensor you have. What you have is what you get, but it's an all-in-one solution that just connects to your phone and it just works. So I think it's a pretty compelling offering for the right person. Now, astrophotographers, it's probably not the thing for them, and it is expensive. It's very expensive. It is $4,200 for the eVscope 2. But for the right person, I think it's a pretty compelling offering. You don't have to know too much about cameras. You don't have to fuss around with setting stuff up with a laptop. You just need a phone and the eVscope. And this eVscope comes with a really nice backpack for carrying it around. So it's a lot easier to move than the eVscope Equinox, which I tried out earlier this year. But if any of you have questions, if you want to talk about telescopes, if you want to talk about SpaceX, if you want to talk about rockets, let me know in the comments. Because I really enjoy this. We've got not too long till splashdown of Crew 2. We've got launch of Crew 3 on Wednesday. It's a very space heavy week. We have Starlink. We have Starlink launches Friday The launch is Friday morning?
I think so.
Okay.
It's 7-something a.m.
Okay, I haven't looked that far ahead. I was like, okay, we're getting ready for Crew, and that was all I was preparing for at this point, and I knew that there was just one coming Friday, maybe. But yeah, so we're really picking things up. There was a launch earlier tonight.
JAXA.
From JAXA, the Epsilon?
Epsilon,
I
believe.
And so that there were a couple different payloads on there. There's a lot of space stuff going on now.
James Webb is getting ready for launch.
Yep, James Webb's getting ready for launch December 18th still.
Last I heard.
So unfortunately I won't be there. It'd be pretty cool to go see that launch, but you know, it's pretty far away from Florida.
French Guiana is a bit far and hard to get to.
Yeah, if it were Virginia, if it were Texas, if it were Florida, I'd make it.
It's like
I would even make it work for California, but I can't do French Guiana.
as much as
Yeah, so we are now at about 7 minutes on the Flame Nebula. It's continuing to get better and better. So we're still in an area of the sky that is pretty heavily light pollution. As it gets higher, it'll continue to improve. As it has a bit more time to image, it'll continue to get better.
Dragon's nose cone is closed, splashing in about 35 minutes.
Cool, cool.
And we do have a WB-57 circling where Crew 2 will be splashing down as always.
Yeah, if for some reason you are in a boat near Pensacola, but pretty far offshore, you better be on channel 16 and listen to the Coast Guard and get away from the splashdown area. That's definitely not somewhere you want to be. Yeah, so we're going to spend a bit more time on the Flame Nebula, then we'll find something else to look at in the night sky.
I can't wait until another Crew Dragon capsule, or just a Dragon capsule, returns and lands offshore like Cape Canaveral.
Yeah, watching the return over Florida again will be good.
Especially if it's clear.
And at night.
At night would be cool. I wouldn't be opposed to daylight also, but especially just having clearer skies than Inspiration 4.
Yeah.
That was something I was I wish I was able to get a picture of Inspiration 4 coming down. I only saw them for a few seconds though. And it was such a small dot in the sky, moving really fast. And then hearing the sonic boom, of course, was also really cool. And I have someone that with Inspiration 4 said that they heard the sonic boom from that in Lakeland. Wow. So that, like, I believe them, but considering I didn't hear any reports of anywhere else in Florida talking about it, I'm gonna believe him, even though I don't think it was that. But if he said he heard Inspiration 4, I'll believe it, because we heard Inspiration 4. I'm kind of curious to see it do the Horsehead. I'm curious if it can.
Yeah, well, let's head over there. We've been on Flame for about 10 minutes.
Am I going to need to give you a code for it?
Well, let's see. Does it know what the Horsehead Nebula is? And it does.
It's going to have to go so far to get there.
It's got details on it. So let's just say go to. It says it's not quite ready yet. I say do it anyway.
Watch how fast it's going to move. It's going to go so far. Ta-da. And it's there.
Well, not quite. It's going to have to adjust a couple times.
Well, no, it overshot.
Yeah.
Like, it moved way too much. Honestly, I think all it had to have done from Flame Nebula is literally kind of go to the right.
I probably could have just tapped the button.
You probably could have manually moved it, but it's probably easy. The Horsehead's a lot harder to see in like a live view. Oh, it's moving again.
Oh,
Oh yeah, it'll take a couple tramps to find it.
Pull up a picture. I have the Horsehead because I'm trying to look at the stars.
There it is. So let's see how it images.
Let's see how that turns out.
This one's definitely got to take... The Horsehead Nebula is going to be one of the harder ones for it to get a picture of because the Horsehead Nebula doesn't emit light like all the other things we've looked at. It's blocking light. The nose cone is closed for re-entry.
Wasn't that already the case?
It was coming up, but they've confirmed it.
It's there.
It's like, if you didn't know what you were looking at, you wouldn't know that's it, but it's there.
I'm just moving the capture device over to a different port to see if that'll maybe some free. All right.
We're about 18 minutes.
18 from splashdown. Yeah, so there's a little bit of color with the Horsehead. It's definitely still not great, but we're at about 7 minutes now.
That's better on the capture. Oh, never mind. I think you can see it in the eyepiece. It's just the contrast. That's great.
Oh yeah, you really don't have a ton of detail on the eyepiece. You can just barely see it there, but it's definitely more easily seen on a phone.
I think it's kind of tinted.
Well, if that was the intention, that's the eVscope Equinox. It's no eyepiece. I think it's... yeah.
Yeah, it's probably more like actually like 20 minutes to splash down. What is entry interface?
Well, once we get close to splashdown, I will turn the camera around. I don't expect to see anything, but I will aim the camera in the direction it should be to see if we happen to capture it.
And I'll try to see if I can get a better idea of what it I'd probably just kind of aim between the gap in these trees here.
Okay.
Because like, if we see anything, it's going to be really
That
low.
gap or that gap in the trees?
The left gap.
The farthest left gap.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because that's kind of looking more kind of east, west, northwest. Because again, the road here goes straight east-west. So we're going to kind of a little to the south. I think it's wide enough. It'll probably get like
Well, we'll be looking north, a little bit north, won't we?
I mean, I'm just kind of looking at like the track, like if we could see the ISS.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you can also like look, if it splashes down like right over here, we'd be kind of looking straight west at it. So that's why it's like a little to the
let's be hopeful, because we might see something. And if not, great night of astronomy.
Yeah. If not, maybe Daryl gets something.
Yeah, I think Daryl is more likely to get something. And there you go. I think that's a lot better for the Horsehead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it called? Terrible.
I mean, it's
Something.
that's the full view, and then once you zoom in a bit, you can see a bit more. But that's really not bad.
I think if we want to just go ahead and wrap up with the eVscope and go ahead and put the camera on something or whatever, just because we're getting to the point where it's like,
Yeah.
we don't know.
All right. Well, with that, we're wrapping up our time with the eVscope, and we will be looking a bit more to the west and trying to keep an eye out for Dragon.
If we see anything, which there's no guarantees we see anything, I am of the opinion we will not see anything.
Yep, I think that's most likely.
But because we don't know, because we know for sure if you're in like clear water, you'd probably be able to see it. But to be fair, that's like 80 miles.
Yeah, I wasn't totally aimed yet. I haven't even gotten to tripod level.
We'll just go first.
Yeah, so for those of you who may be here now, we are just finishing up with the eVscope, but don't leave quite yet. We are keeping an eye out on if perhaps we will see the Dragon capsule as it goes to splash down. We are not hopeful, but we're going to look anyway. So when you finish up with the eVscope, you just set it to park, and then you get your lens caps, and it all folds back up nicely and back up. So we are keeping an eye out for it, and we'll adjust the camera if we happen to see it. too surprising. Go ahead and check out the ISS live stream. We have spaceexplorer.com/ISS live to see the mission coverage of the splashdown as well as future related ISS events. We are not going to have it on camera, not surprising, but worth a shot regardless. But the crew is currently nearing splashdown in the Gulf. So for those who are watching, it looks like 3 of the main chutes fully properly deployed, but one of them might. One of them looks very different. Okay, now it looks very full. Okay. Yeah. Well, we will see. They are getting so close to splashdown now. And we're just aiming at the sky, quite honestly. feral herd sonic boom. Messages sent. Alright, well, thank you all who have joined us tonight. We are going to sign off. Stay tuned. We will have a review coming very soon of the product. I certainly enjoy using the eVscope too, but stay tuned for my full thoughts put together in one place. Be sure to follow us on social media. Our Twitters are in the description. And stay tuned, because we will absolutely be doing another astronomy night or two. So be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and